Here's a little video explaining how I transfer this drawing onto this stretch watercolour paper. So the first thing I do is I scan this drawing and I enlarge it and print it off in reverse, so it ends up looking a bit like this. So this is printed on some really cheap thin printing paper, and it's printed to the size that I want the original painting to be. And this one is actually just missing a little bit on this left hand side because I don't have enough paper to print it big enough and stick it all together. So then I trace this using a very soft pencil, so maybe like a 3B, something like that, and I go along every single line and do a pretty rough tracing. It's just to kind of pinpoint the areas that I then need to draw up properly on the watercolour paper. Once everything is traced to how I want it to be with this soft pencil, including all of these little edges, so I can find the edge of the original painting quickly, I then flip that back over and I put it into position roughly, and I get a bit of Scotch magic tape, possibly my favourite tape there is. How sad is that? And then I position that, giving myself a bit of margin around the edge here so that I can make the painting a little bit bigger if I want to, and I also have enough room to then put the Scotch magic tape around the edge of the original painting to create a nice white margin at the end. So I just put a few little pieces on there, making sure I'm not taping it all the way around because I want to be able to actually flick it back to see how the transfer is going. So I might just do something like that. And then, so we've got 3 pieces, and then I get this worn down bone folder. So it's not actually bone, it's just plastic. And just start rubbing away as if I'm going to do a brass rubbing, but instead I'm just rubbing where I can see through the thin paper the lines, pressing down on that to a decent amount, not too hard, and then you can see just there it's starting to transfer. Keep on going. And obviously the harder you press, the darker the transfer is, but you don't want to press down too hard because you might end up damaging the paper. And hopefully that's coming through on the video, that you can just see that little transfer there. So let me see if I can zoom in for you and you can see the whole thing a bit clearer. There you go. So that's what it looks like when it's transferred, and then I'll rub the whole thing and then show you what that looks like, and then I will draw it up. That's the transfer done, I think. So I'm going to take this off pretty carefully because there's actually tiny little bits of plastic from the bone folder that come away, and end up, can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. They come away and end up going on the watercolour paper, which is obviously not what I want. So carefully take that off. And then you've got the transferred image, which is kind of a ghost image, really. And it's in really soft pencil. So you got to be pretty careful when you're doing the drawing back over the top. I just do a line drawing with a hard pencil, like a 2H, something like that. And then go over that with a putty rubber to lift the soft pencil away and leave the hard pencil there. And then hopefully the hard pencil will stay there for a bit longer as well when I start putting watercolour over the top with big washes and big brushes. I'm drawing the edge of the painting, or the border, or whatever you want to call it. I tend to use these little markers, but I don't actually draw over the top of these little markers that I've transferred. Instead, I give myself like another 2 or 3 mil just on the outside of that, so the painting ends up being just a little bit bigger than what I anticipate. But the reason I do that is because I want to make sure that the painting is definitely bigger than what I said I was going to give the client, so I don't want it to be smaller. And also these lines are never exactly square, because I've just joined 2 pieces of paper together to create these markers, so there's going to be a bit of wonkiness going on. So when it comes to cropping in Photoshop, then I'll realize that, oh, actually this side might be square, but that side might be just a little bit wonky. So by giving myself just a few extra mil either side, then when it comes to cropping, I can crop it in, and it'll probably end up taking a part of maybe this side, and so that it looks completely flush. Because if I do it right up to the edge that I've got on these little markers, and I do these straight lines, and it turns out it's not square, then when you come to crop it, you'll end up with these white bits of paper showing, and I'll have to crop it in even further, and then the painting really does, or at least the image really is, smaller than I initially told my client it would be, which, you know, could be an issue. Who knows? Also, I mean, it's quite a nice idea, just as an illustrator, just to have that extra little bit of bleed, even if it's not that much. It does help, because then it just gives you a bit more leeway. You can move the figures, or at least the illustration around on the page a little bit as it's been designed. When I've done covers before, I've done absolutely massive bleeds, which is just extra space. For those that don't understand what I'm saying, it's just extra space added to the painting. So at the moment, this painting will finish here, but if I wanted a really big bleed, then I might paint even further and take it right up against the gum strip tape here. So that's just something that I bear in mind as I'm doing these. Side wasn't fully transferred, so there should be a little bit extra that I need to draw in. It's not much. So it was going to be 59 centimeters wide, which comes to about there. I'll do that on this side as well. 59. So the actual painting should finish there, but the printout only went up to here. So what's that, another 2 centimeters, something like that I need to add on. That's not a big deal. It's relatively simple to do. I'll just line up that edge, go past it. I'll do the same at the bottom. And then again, I'll give myself a little bit more than the 59. So the 59 is there, and I'll take it maybe 3mm past, just to give me some, I suppose it'd be tolerance when it comes to cropping the image later on when it's finished. And then once that bit is done, then I can get a putty rubber. So I have a little jar full of knackered old rubbers that I am determined to use up. And I get my little putty rubber out of there. So that's the putty rubber. Give it a little squeeze, get it all back together again. And then very carefully just take out the darker marks. If I take this down, then you can see what I'm doing. So you've got the extra, so that's the original mark, the original dark mark there. And then the line on the outside is the line that I've just drawn. And that's like 2 or 3mm on the outside, just to give me a bit of extra space. If I go over that with the putty rubber, it mainly takes out the dark mark, or the darker mark, which is the soft pencil. So I do that all the way around. I'll do that, take out all of those darker marks there, and then I'll start getting a hard pencil and draw on top of all of these lines. Really sort out these characters, sort out Toad's mangled hand there. And then once that's done, I can then go over it with the putty rubber and take away all the dark marks and only leave the nice hard pencil. I've done the line drawing here with a 3H pencil, and then I've got the putty rubber, and I'm going to just lift out the soft 3B pencil that's sort of underneath, and you see it kind of takes a bit of the hard pencil away as well, but it does actually clean up the lines quite significantly. And then I can see any bits that I didn't manage to draw on, such as this tie here and collar. So yeah, just like barely touching it, I'm just lifting it, and then you can see it's coming out. So I just fold the putty rubber back a bit, get a cleaner bit, and away I go again. And then you look back and it's got mucky again. So pretty simple job really. Not very exciting to do, although it does mean that when I do this bit, because you're enlarging such a small drawing, you can see the size difference there, it does mean that it enlarges all of the mistakes in the drawing, and then when you transfer the drawing across as it's being enlarged onto the watercolour paper, then you can really see those mistakes, and you can see sort of the proportion aspects. I decided to keep Mole's head smaller than Toad's, but I still had to increase the size of Mole's head quite a bit, and I had to also rework the snout of Mr. Badger as well, and make his body a little bit longer. So I kind of brought his knees down. His knees now sort of here, and then the rest of them will be right down here and here. But because he's, well, they all are walking through this bluebell glade, I suppose you would call it, you're not going to see anything really below the knees particularly. Let's see, there you go, that bit wasn't drawn in with the hard pencil. But yeah, just by taking out this soft pencil, it means that the soft pencil then won't dilute with the watercolour paint when I'm painting, therefore making the paint a bit grey, and sometimes you'll get little bits of speckly residue from the graphite as well in the paint, or even, heaven forbid, an actual streak if you've got a big bit of soft graphite that you haven't removed. You can almost like smudge it across an area that you've done.